Hi, I'm George Cappannelli. Sedena and I want to welcome you to this edition of Ageless Living Wisdom Series. It's an opportunity that we take to gather together with experts and authors, friends and colleagues from around the country and around the world who have wonderful things to share for all of us. New strategies, new insights, new perceptions, and new opportunities to help us be more inspired, more empowered, and to live lives of greater balance and harmony. Today, we're really delighted to have Lynne Twist and Sara Vetter with us. And Sedena will introduce both for those of you who don't have as much knowledge of them as you should.
I'm Sedena Cappannelli, and before we introduce Lynne and Sara, I want to just share a little bit about the work that they do in the world. Lynne Twist has been a recognized leader, global visionary committed to alleviating poverty, ending world hunger, and social justice and the environmental sustainability of our world for a very long time. From working with Mother Teresa in Calcutta to the refugee camps in Ethiopia and threatened rainforests of the Amazon, as well as guiding the philanthropy of some of the wealthiest families in the country, in the world. She has a deep understanding of people's relationship with money. And she describes that, articulates that in her book, The Soul of Money. And also in her, captures it also in her institute of the same name, The Soul of Money. So we're very grateful to have you with us, Lynne. And also Sara Vetter has been Lynne's partner now for 11 years. And she's the major fundraiser for the Pachamama Alliance. So it's fantastic to have you here, both of you. We're very grateful.
Before we get to our interview, I just want to point out to our viewers that Lynne has been gracious to be a part of our Ageless Living Television Series. 22 major authors who present really great content, inspiration, and information to lift us off the couch and get us inspired in the world. And Lynne's special, two-part special, is called The Soul of Money, Living a Committed Life. And if you want to cry a lot and laugh a lot and really get touched with ideas and concepts about how you can lead a committed life, make sure you watch her series. It's on in about 31 PBS markets at the moment and growing daily. If it does not happen to be on in your market, please call your local PBS station and ask them when they're going to begin airing this 40-episode series that you really won't want to miss. So now let's get to our interview, shall we? Lynne, Sara, delighted to have you with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's great. So to both of you, obviously these are very challenging times, even though we've heard warnings for a very long time, for decades, from scientists and experts, and about the coming earth changes from wisdom traditions and wisdom keepers, about this transition from the old story to the new story. Who would have predicted that in this very short window of time, in 30 days, the scope and the speed of the changes that would happen? So we're really interested in what you both have to say about what you make of this.
Well, thank you so much for including us both. I just want to say Sara works also very much with me in the Soul of Money Institute, as well as the Pachamama Alliance, which we both participate in, both of those organizations. And the Pachamama Alliance is an organization that gives us the access and the incredible privilege of working with indigenous people of the Amazon. And I'll just begin by saying the wisdom coming from the indigenous people at this time of this pandemic is truly profound and awesome. We all know this is a disruption, a very intense disruption. Many people would say totally unexpected and it is clearly unprecedented. And it's showing us what we're capable of as a human community. I mean, we have not responded to anything ever the way the world is responding to this. Even World War II, if you look back, there is no living person on earth who is not impacted by this and who is not feeling that we're one biology. We're one biology with each other, with all animals, with all plants, and with the earth herself. And I say that because one of the great healers and ceremonial leaders that we work with has said that this, in some primordial part of our own selves, those of us who are conscious, and maybe those of us who are not conscious, have been waiting for something or someone powerful and sacred enough to stop us, to interrupt the massive destruction of the ecosystem, the massive destruction of all the sources of life. And as a human family, we've wanted to do that. We've been concerned about it. I myself have been working in the environmental movement for huge numbers of years. It's almost the 50th anniversary as we record this of Earth Day. That's 5 decades of people working on changing the trajectory of the human family. And now in just, as you say, 30 days, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, everything has been stopped. I mean, really stopped. And as a result, if you look at it from an environmental lens, people in China who've never seen the stars in their whole lifetime, have clear skies above their head. In New York, I've been told that the pollution is down 50 to 60% because there's no industrial activity and no cars, no taxis, nobody outside, except walking in nature, walking in Central Park, looking for green, looking for a place where they can breathe with nature instead of exploit nature. So the shamans that we've been privileged to work with, another one whose name is Minari, has said this beautiful thing. He says that the virus is an announcement. It's an announcement of a great and profound cleanse, a letting go, a cleansing, a dropping of habits and practices and ways of being that we all knew in our heart of hearts was off course, both in our society and civilization, but in our own lives. Really overconsumptive habits that have gotten so out of control, going way beyond what we need, and accumulating and acquiring and exploiting. So our view at the Soul of Money Institute, where we actually dwell in what we call the distinctions of sufficiency, the distinctions of enough. This is like a godsend to have people be sheltered at home, actually having to do everything that they need with what they already have without acquiring more, which is actually a very, very powerful discipline. Now, I want to also say, I don't want to step over the fact that people are dying. People have lost loved ones, that people have lost their entire business, and they've been completely wiped out, that hundreds of thousands of people have been very, very ill. I'm not stepping over that. In fact, some of that pain, some of that suffering, some of that devastation has also come to us at a time when we are ready as a human community to deepen our humanity and compassion for the darkness, for death, for the end of life, and for the what is really wanted and needed for us to care for each other and be safe, and know that really our health and well-being is dependent on the community rather than some technologies or some institutions. So I have a lot more I could say about it, but this is a disruption, an interruption, and a huge opportunity for a reset, a reimagining, a reclaiming, a re-seeing, a revisioning recreating out of this the life, the civilization, the way of living that we've all dreamed of, but haven't been able to wrestle from the structures and systems we've been trapped in for several hundred years that have separated us and made us believe that we're in competition with each other rather than we're one humanity. So that's one way of looking at what's going on.
An amazing one.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sarah, give us a little of your thoughts about this.
Well, I'll just say from a more granular, like what we're doing here in our grand Soul of Money life office, our little office here. It feels to me like all the work, Lynne's been doing for over 50 years, me for 11 years, has come to this moment. When you said 30 days ago, I thought, wow, it hasn't been a year. I mean, it feels like a long 30 days. But the work that we've done, the sort of the looking for inspiration everywhere we go, everywhere we turn, and the work that you're doing with Ageless Living and the 22 people that are speaking in this program, it's like it's our time now to really walk the talk. It's our time now to really own up to what it is that keeps us centered and grounded. So we're hard at work here looking at how to navigate these challenging times, how to stay centered, how to live in sufficiency, how to know that we're enough just as we are. And I've been talking about that for a while, but now it's like hit home. Like if I can't feel enough right now and sufficient in my sheltering at home, I'm sheltering at home with Lynne and her husband, Bill, the three of us. If I can't feel like I'm enough with just exactly what I have here, then I'm not going to get through this time period. I'm going to just be so stuck in looking back and looking ahead and fearing what's ahead and fearing what's coming up next and uncertainty and unknowing. But if I stay like, wait, okay, I'm in this beautiful home. We have this beautiful place to walk. I have just the clothes I need. I have just every little thing that I need. If I don't really own the work that we're doing and keep looking and searching for beautiful thought leaders like you have in your programs, what else can I take? What else can I learn from so many amazing teachers out there now? That it feels like we've worked all our lives for this moment of being there for all the people in our world. So that's what's showing up for me now these times.
I've been thinking a lot about is the challenges that you spoke to, Lynne, both loss of life and financial disruption and all of that. And of course, there are people who do not have a life to go back to, that have to re-envision and reinvent themselves. And I think, I know those of us who are here with Ageless Living, we feel an obligation to help people think through some of that.
Right.
And I'm sure that's true for everyone in the series and everyone that does good work around the world. One of the things that I also know, Robert Bly spoke to it in his book, Iron John. And one of the things he spoke to is that sometimes when we are forced to go deep, our tendency is to try to get back to the surface as quickly as possible. And in this instance, especially those people who are addicted to the 24/7 world, the way most of us are in one way or another, the tendency might very well be to step back too quickly and to try to reinvent what was and hopefully will never be again. But the question is, how do we take what we've learned, the observations you've both made about life now, sufficiency, understanding what's happening with the earth beginning to take a breath and repair itself in some ways. Because at the top of most governments and most institutions are many of the same fools that were there before. and they're going to be there when we come out. And I don't mean to be disparaging, but it has been really hard to get their attention, to say the things, Lynne, that you said, and Sara, the things that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think we do that? How do we hold on to the victories that we're experiencing in the middle of this catastrophe and not lose it?
Oh, well, that's an excellent question. I think that's the question of our time. And I don't have an answer. I have a response.
Yes.
First of all, I heard yesterday from one of my friends and colleagues, Charles Eisenstein, the darkness we're going through is not the tomb, it's the womb.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't say this, I'm sort of extrapolating from what he and I and my husband were having a conversation yesterday online. And we are in some sort of a birth canal. And you could, there's so many metaphors that might be apt, but one, for any woman who's had a child, the more it hurts, the closer you are to having a baby, the closer you are to the miracle. The pain gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until that baby is born. And some babies don't make it. Some women die in childbirth. Some babies don't get born. So it's not 100% guaranteed. Another metaphor that is not an answer to your question, but a response is the obvious metaphor of the caterpillar and the butterfly, which we use in all of our Pachamama programs. And when a caterpillar reaches a certain point of its evolution, it becomes an overconsumptive little monster. This is a natural part of the caterpillar's evolutionary development, and can eat 100 times its weight. Becomes very obese, you might say, and can hardly move because it eats so much. And then at a certain point in the caterpillar's body, what's called the imaginal cells wake up, get activated, and they need to find each other and cluster. And if enough of them find each other and cluster, that doesn't always happen. Many, many caterpillars die fat little brown monsters, overconsumptive monsters. But if enough of the imaginal cells cluster, and it doesn't need to be a majority, just enough, there's some formula inside that little caterpillar, they then become the genetic directors of the caterpillar's future, and the other cells become what's called the nutritive soup, out of which the imaginal cells create the absolute unpredictable miracle of a butterfly. It doesn't look like a caterpillar. You can't imagine it came from a caterpillar. It's just completely different. I say that's perhaps what's happening. That kind of a metaphor is helpful for me. That's why I consider the Ageless Living Series, the imaginal cells coming together, clustering in your program that you created. And I'm so fortunate that I was invited to be an imaginal cell, or at least that's what I'll call myself. And the two of you are, and Sara is. So for me, it's a time for those of us who are working on the consciousness, a conscious evolutionary leap for our species. And really, this is a species breakdown. There are 1 million species right now that are in danger of extinction because of human activity. We are so destructive as a species. And perhaps now the attack on our immune system, the attack on our respiratory system, just the way as a species we've attacked the respiratory system of the earth through the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, which I work on, and so does Sara, the destruction of the forests everywhere, and the oceans, which are the lungs of the planet. Perhaps now this virus coming back and attacking the respiratory system of our species is not, I should say, an attack. It's more like showing how we're all in this together. We're in this with the trees. We're in this with the butterflies. We're in this with the oceans. We're in this with the great mother herself. And as I said earlier, I want to just make sure that you know that the shamans and elders and healers in the forest that we work with say this is not a punishment. No, this virus is an ally. It comes from life to help us sustain life. So if we can put a frame around this, and I call it not just a frame, but maybe the radical, surprising truth about the virus. It is an ally that we needed, that we in some primordial way wanted, even though there's consequences. Just like when you get pregnant, you have morning sickness, you don't feel good, you blow up like a balloon, and you go through a lot of pain to have a baby. It's not all rosy, this transformational passage we're in. But I'm naming it, I'm calling it an evolutionary leap. And we have to choose to make it. It's not get guarantee. So the answer to your question is, I don't know, but my frame for what's going on is to call it an evolutionary leap, treat it like one, and do what is ours to do to author that transformation, own it, and make it happen.
Wow. Thank you.
Great answer.
Yeah.
It's not an answer, it's a response.
Great response.
Answer. I love the butterfly. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I love how Lynne spoke about we're in this together with nature. And if you're noticing, at least I'm noticing here, we live in San Francisco, in the city, but the birds have come out, you can see nature now in a whole new way, and the animals, and I see birds flying around our windows here. Maybe it's that I'm now just stopping enough to notice, or that they're actually have some breathing space to come out now and join us. So I can feel that even when I'm walking in the city, I can just feel, or in the park or near the park, even with the separation and the distancing, I can feel this collaboration with nature that I don't think wouldn't be possible if this weren't happening. So I love that Lynne talked about it's for the animal world, for species other than humans, it's a great place for them. They're really coming out. So I love remembering that when I start to, because I'm someone that can go a little bit up and down and up and down. I need to get back to center ground, and that does help in that.
Nature always helps. Thank you.
As you were describing that, I suddenly saw a Pixar film with all of the different species talking to one another about the pandemic and seeing their side of the parks and the sky, and what a remarkable film that would be.
It would.
But we know we're getting to the end of our time together. And for those people who are watching, I want to... the work you both do is so important,
It's amazing.
And you're both champions that are so needed in this time that is distressed. You've been champions for a long time. Lynne, obviously, you've been at this longer in some ways than Sara has, but the work is so critical. And when those of you who have the opportunity to see Lynne's two-part special, when she talks about a committed life, and she talks about how we discover it and how it leads us in our lives. It is such an important conversation for you to be part of, because as we emerge from this, we are going to need a lot of committed lives.
And it lifts you right up. Don't miss it.
So really we want to thank you both for spending some time with us. We want to remind our audience to reach out to their PBS stations so they don't miss your special. We'll have other times in the future to talk again.
Yeah, and just thank you so much for the work you do in the world, for who you are, the way you show up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure Delight and an honor to be
Yeah,
with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings, indeed.